Guy I know sold his company for $28 million in 2019. Retired at 52. By 55, he was back working at a job he hated, making $80,000 a year. Another guy, orthodontist, spent 30 years building a practice worth $3.2 million, sold it at 60. Spent the next 18 months sitting in his paid-off house, watching the market, having panic attacks every time the S&P 500 dropped 2%. Then there's my old business partner. Made great money. Always made great money. But he couldn't stop working because he built a life that cost $40,000 a month to maintain. And I'm not talking about investments or building wealth. I'm talking about the monthly burn rate, just to keep the machine running. Here's what all three of these guys have in common. They spent decades optimizing for the wrong variable. And I'm not talking about some soft motivational garbage about following your passion. I'm talking about a fundamental error in how they set up their decision-making framework. They were solving for maximum wealth accumulation when they should have been solving for minimum regret. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to explain the actual incentive structures and psychological traps that make smart people, people with money, people who did everything right according to conventional wisdom, end up at 60 years old realizing they've been playing the wrong game the entire time. And I'm going to do it by showing you the 4 specific ways this optimization error manifests, why it happens, and what you can actually do about it before you wake up one day and realize you won the wrong prize. Think about your financial life as an optimization problem. And I know that sounds academic, but stay with me because this is where everything clicks. Every decision you make, every dollar you spend or save, every job you take, every house you buy, you're feeding inputs into an equation. The question is, what is that equation solving for? Most of us, and I'm including myself here for most of my life, we're running some version of this. Maximize net worth at retirement age. That's the function. That's what we're optimizing for. More is better. 7 figures is better than 6. 8 is better than 7. And the entire financial services industry, every 401k provider, every financial advisor, every talking head on CNBC, they're all reinforcing this exact same optimization function. But here's the thing, optimization problems are only as good as the constraints you build into them. And we forgot to add the constraints. We forgot to add time. We forgot to add health. We forgot to add the fact that experiences have a half-life, that a surf trip at 45 hits different than a surf trip at 70. Assuming you can still surf at 70, we forgot to constrain for the reality that your kids are only kids once. And that decade between when they're 8 and 18, you don't get that back. It's not like money. It doesn't compound. It just disappears. So what happens is you spend 30 years crushing it at this optimization problem, and you're winning. Your net worth is going up into the right. Your 401k statement makes you feel smart. And then you hit 60 and you realize, oh, I optimized for the wrong thing. I maximized a variable that turns out not to matter as much as I thought it did. And by the way, this isn't some theoretical problem I'm describing from a textbook. This is what I see constantly. I ran a business for over a decade. I've had hundreds of thousands of dollars in the market for years. I've been surrounded by guys who made real money, and I'm watching them all make the exact same error. Let me tell you about the first place this shows up. And it's the most obvious one, but also the most expensive. It's the image game. Now you're thinking, sure, keeping up with the Joneses, I've heard this before. But I'm not talking about some surface level observation about buying cars you can't afford. I'm talking about the incentive structure that makes intelligent people light money on fire to impress people they don't even like. Here's how it works. You're 45 years old, you've done well. You're making, let's say, $350,000 a year. You live in a neighborhood where that's upper middle class, but not rich. Your neighbor, another guy who's doing well, buys a new Range Rover, $85,000. Now here's where the psychology gets interesting. You don't actually want the Range Rover. You have a perfectly good car, but your brain isn't evaluating the car on its merits. Your brain is running a different calculation entirely. It's asking, what does his Range Rover signal about his status relative to mine? And more importantly, what does my lack of a Range Rover signal to everyone else? So you buy the car, not because it makes you happy, not because it solves a transportation problem. You buy it because you're trying to maintain your position in a status hierarchy. And here's the kicker. The neighbor didn't even buy the car for himself. He bought it for the same reason you did. He's running the same broken optimization function. You're both spending real money on a game where everyone loses except the dealership. Now multiply this across every visible consumption decision you make. The house, the vacations you post on social media, the college you send your kids to. I know a guy, smart guy, electrical engineer, who took out $60,000 in Parent Plus loans so his daughter could go to a private school instead of state school. Not because the education was meaningfully better. He ran the numbers on outcomes, and they were basically identical, but because he couldn't stomach the idea of telling people at his firm that his daughter went to state school, $60,000. At 7% interest, over 10 years, he's paying $84,000 total for signaling. And here's where it gets really interesting. The financial services industry is completely complicit in this because they make more money when you make more money, and they make more money when you spend more money because then you need to make more money. Your financial advisor isn't incentivized to tell you to stop buying stuff you don't need. He's incentivized to help you figure out how to afford the stuff because that keeps you working longer, earning more, which means more assets under management, which means more fees. The whole system is designed to keep you on the hamster wheel, upgrading your lifestyle in lockstep with your income, which means you never actually get ahead. You're just running faster on the same wheel. But now you might think, okay, sure, I get it. Don't buy stupid stuff. Except it's not about the stuff. It's about what the stuff represents. Let me tell you about this orthodontist I mentioned earlier. This guy was the definition of financial success by every conventional metric. Built a practice from scratch, lived below his means relative to his income, saved aggressively, had a diversified portfolio, did everything right, sold the practice at 60 for $3.2 million. After taxes and paying off some remaining debts, he walked away with about $2.4 million liquid. Combine that with his other investments in home equity, he's sitting on probably $3.8 million total net worth. By every measure, he won the game. He should be thrilled. He optimized perfectly. Except here's what nobody told him. The optimization function he was running, maximize net worth at retirement. That function has a built-in assumption. The assumption is that once you hit the number, you'll know how to switch modes. You'll know how to go from accumulator to spender, from defense to offense. And it turns out that's not a switch you can just flip. This guy spent 40 years, literally 4 decades, training his brain to derive satisfaction from watching numbers go up. Every month, he'd check his accounts. Every quarter, he'd review his net worth statement. His entire dopamine reward system got wired around accumulation. And then one day, he's supposed to just start spending it, start drawing it down. Every time he looks at that account balance and it's lower than last month, his brain is screaming at him that he's doing something wrong. He's failing. The number is going down. So what does he do? He sits there. He's got $3.8 million and he's living like he's got $300,000. He's still buying the store brand cereal, still driving a 12-year-old Camry, still agonizing over whether to get the appetizer at dinner, not because he needs to. He could spend $150,000 a year for 25 years and still die with over $1 million left over, assuming even modest returns. But he can't do it. His optimization function won't let him. And this is what I mean about constraints. He optimized for maximum wealth without constraining for psychological flexibility. He didn't build in a plan for what happens when accumulation stops being the goal. And now he's trapped. He's got all this money and zero ability to enjoy it because his brain is still running the old program. This is the second realization, and it's the one that took me the longest to internalize. The shift from saver to spender isn't a math problem. It's not about calculating your safe withdrawal rate and just executing the plan. It's a complete rewiring of your identity. And if you wait until retirement to start that rewiring, it might be too late. Let me give you a concrete example with real numbers, because I think this is where it becomes obvious how broken the conventional wisdom is. Let's say you're 55 years old. You've got 1.8 million saved. You're still working, making $200,000 a year. You're living on $140,000 a year and saving $60,000. According to every retirement calculator on the planet, you're crushing it. You're on track to retire at 65 with probably $3 million, maybe more if the market cooperates. But here's what the calculators don't tell you. You're 55. Let's say you're in decent health and you live to 85. That's 30 years left. But those 30 years aren't equal. The first 10 years, 55 to 65, while you're still working, those are your best years. You're healthy enough to travel. Your knees still work. You can hike. You can surf. You can do the stuff that makes life interesting. The next 10 years, 65 to 75, you're still pretty good, but you're starting to slow down. Long flights are harder. You can't do the adventure stuff as easily. And the last 10 years, 75 to 85, those are the years where you're mostly just trying to maintain. Maybe you get lucky and you're still sharp and mobile, but statistically, those aren't your peak experience years. So here's a question. Why are you optimizing to have maximum wealth at 65 when your best years are right now? Why are you saving that extra $60,000 a year when you could spend $30,000 of it on experiences today, while those experiences still matter and still be completely fine at retirement? The math works. Running the numbers, if you only save $30,000 a year instead of $60,000 from 55 to 65, you end up with about $2.4 million instead of $3 million. And you know what? $2.4 million is still a completely comfortable retirement. At a 4% withdrawal rate, that's $96,000 a year. You were living on $140 when you were working, but a bunch of that was work-related expenses. $96,000 in retirement, no commute, no work wardrobe, probably downsize the house. That's plenty. But what did you gain? You gained 10 years of actually living, of taking the trips, of having the experiences while you could still enjoy them. You front-loaded your life satisfaction instead of backloading your net worth. That's a different optimization function. That's optimizing for minimum regret instead of maximum wealth. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but what if the market crashes? What if I need the extra cushion? And this is where I have to be blunt. That's fear talking. That's your broken optimization function trying to defend itself. If you've got 1.8 million at 55 and you're still saving 60,000 a year, you don't have a money problem. You have a psychology problem. You're not actually afraid of running out of money. You're afraid of the number going down. And those are two completely different things. Here's the third thing, and this one's gonna make some people uncomfortable. Stuff doesn't make you happy, but you already know that. Everyone knows that. There have been about 9,000 studies on this. Once you hit a certain income level, somewhere around 75 to 90,000 a year, depending on where you live, additional money has massively diminishing returns on happiness. But here's what the studies don't emphasize enough. It's not just that more stuff doesn't make you happier. It's that stuff makes you less happy because stuff creates obligations. Everything you own owns you back. That's not poetry. That's a real accounting of your time and mental energy. You buy a boat. Now you have to maintain the boat, store the boat, pay insurance on the boat, winterize the boat. And boats are the obvious example everyone uses, but it applies to everything. The bigger house means more to clean, more to maintain, higher property taxes. The fancy car means more anxiety about door dings. The vacation home means coordinating schedules and worrying about whether the pipes are gonna freeze when you're not there. I watched a guy I used to work with buy a vacation home in Lake Tahoe. Beautiful place, $600,000 in 2010. By 2015, it was worth about $750,000. Seemed like a great investment. Except here's what he didn't factor in. Property taxes, $12,000 a year. HOA fees, $4,000 a year. Utilities, even when he wasn't there, another $3,000. Maintenance, repairs, furnishing, call it another $5,000 a year averaged out. So he's got $24,000 a year in carrying costs. Now, he used the place maybe 6 weeks a year. Let's be generous and say 8 weeks. That's 2 months. So he's paying $24,000 a year for 2 months of use. That's $12,000 a month, or about $400 a day, just for the privilege of owning it. He could have stayed in a really nice hotel every single time he went to Tahoe, or rented an incredible place and spent way less money with zero maintenance headaches. But he couldn't see it that way because he wasn't thinking about the total cost of ownership. He was thinking about the asset value. He was running the wrong equation. And here's the kicker. After owning it for 8 years, dealing with all the headaches, he sold it in 2018 for $800,000. After commissions and closing costs, he netted about $760,000. So he made $60,000 on paper over 8 years, but he spent $192,000 in carrying costs. He lost $132,000, and that's not even counting opportunity cost. If he'd invested that $600,000 in an index fund in 2010, it would have been worth about $1.4 million by 2018. He left $700,000 on the table so he could have the prestige of saying he owned a place in Tahoe. This is what I mean about incentives. We're incentivized by our social circles, by our self-image, by our need to signal success, to make decisions that are economically insane. And the entire economy is built on getting you to make these decisions because consumption is what keeps the machine running. Everyone wants you to buy stuff because that's how they make money. The real estate agent wants you to buy the vacation home. The boat dealer wants you to buy the boat. The luxury car salesman wants you to upgrade. They're not bad people. They're just responding to their incentives. But you need to be aware that their incentives are not aligned with your actual well-being. This brings me to the fourth thing, and this is probably the most important one. The stuff you think is wealth, the house, the cars, the toys, that's not actually wealth. Wealth is time. Wealth is the ability to say no. Wealth is not needing to be anywhere you don't want to be or doing anything you don't want to do. And almost nobody structures their financial life around that definition. Let me tell you about my old business partner, the guy burning $40,000 a month. This guy was making $700,000 a year. Objectively, that's a lot of money, but his lifestyle inflated to match it. He bought a house for $2.3 million. Mortgage was about $9,000 a month. 2 fancy cars, leases total about $2,000 a month. Private school for the kids, $4,000 a month. Country club membership, country club dues, another $2,000. And then just general living expenses for a family trying to maintain that level. Easily another $23,000 a month. That's $40,000 a month, $480,000 a year. Now he's making $700,000, but after taxes, he's taking home about $400,000. So he's spending $480,000 and taking home $400,000. He's going backwards, $80,000 a year. And he's doing it by tapping his portfolio, which means he can never stop working because the portfolio is shrinking every year instead of growing. He built a machine that requires constant feeding. And the only way to feed it is to keep grinding at a job that, by his own admission, he hates. And here's the thing that makes it tragic. If he had structured his life differently, if he had bought a house for $900,000 instead of $2.3 million, leased normal cars instead of luxury cars, sent his kids to good public schools, he could have lived really well on $250,000 a year, which means he could have been saving $150,000 a year. After 10 years, even assuming modest returns, he'd have about $2.2 million saved. At that point, he could have walked away, done something else, started something he actually cared about, but he can't. He's trapped by his own choices. This is the incentive problem at its core. Society tells you that success looks like a big house and fancy cars and private schools. And once you buy into that definition, once you structure your life around it, you lose your freedom. You become a slave to the very things that were supposed to represent success. What 99% of people do is usually what not to do. Now, let me give you a mini case study to make this concrete, because I think this is where theory meets reality, and you can see exactly what I'm talking about. 2 guys I know, I'll call them Dave and Tom, both 48 years old, both making about $400,000 a year in 2020, both married, 2 kids each. Dave lives in a nice but not crazy house. He bought it in 2012 for $600,000, put 20% down, mortgaged the rest. House is worth about $800,000 now. His mortgage payment is about $2,800 a month. He drives a Honda. His wife drives a Toyota. They spend about $120,000 a year total, all in. They max out their 401ks, they save additionally in a brokerage account, and they go on nice vacations. Nothing extravagant, but they're not staying at Motel 6 either. Tom lives in a house he bought for $1.9 million in 2018. He put 10% down, mortgaged the rest. His payment is about $8,000 a month. He drives a Tesla Model X. His wife drives a Mercedes SUV. The car payments alone are $1,800 a month. They spend about $300,000 a year. They're saving some money in their 401ks, but not maxing them out. And they have basically no other savings because they're putting the kids through private school at $35,000 per kid per year. Fast forward to today, early 2026. Dave has about $2.1 million saved. His house is paid off. He could retire tomorrow if he wanted to. He won't because he actually likes his job, but the point is he could. He has freedom. Tom has about $400,000 saved. His house has about $200,000 in equity. His net worth is around $600,000 total. He's got at least 20 more years before he can even think about retiring. And that's assuming nothing goes wrong. One major health issue, one job loss, and he's in real trouble. Same income, same starting point. But Dave was running an optimization function that prioritized freedom, and Tom was running an optimization function that prioritized status. And 6 years later, Dave has options, and Tom has obligations. So what do you actually do with this information? 3 things. 1, rewrite your optimization function. Stop trying to maximize net worth and start trying to minimize future regret. That means spending money now on experiences that matter while you can still enjoy them. That means not deferring life until retirement. That means structuring your financial decisions around buying time and freedom, not stuff. Run the numbers. Figure out what you actually need to retire comfortably. And I mean actually need. Not the inflated number that your financial advisor gives you because he gets paid more if the number is higher. And then once you know that number, stop optimizing past it. Spend the excess on today. 2, practice spending. I'm serious about this. If you've been a saver your whole life, you need to deliberately practice the skill of spending money without guilt. Start small. Take the nicer hotel. Get the good seats at the concert. Order the expensive wine. Not because you're trying to impress anyone, but because you're training your brain that it's okay to exchange money for experiences. Because if you wait until retirement to flip that switch, it won't flip. I've seen it too many times. 3, audit your obligations. Go through everything you own and everything you're paying for and ask yourself, is this thing adding to my life or is it taking from my life? Is this house making me happy or is it just eating up my time and money? Are these cars bringing me joy or are they just status symbols I bought because I thought I was supposed to? Be ruthlessly honest and then start cutting. Sell the stuff that owns you. Downsize the obligations. Buy back your time. Look, I spent a decade building a business surrounded by guys who made real money. Multiple, hundreds of thousands invested in markets. And the pattern I see over and over is this. Smart people, disciplined people, people who did everything society told them to do, they get to 60 and they realize they optimized for the wrong variable. They have the money, but not the time. They have the house, but not the freedom. They won the game, but they hate the prize. Don't be that guy. The equation is right there in front of you. You just have to solve for the right variable.